IDW Sonic Annual 2022. We see Blaze faced with a pirate ship telling Marine to bring them in close, and she flies over to it and puts fire all over it. Now, as long as she won't get knocked out again, this is an apology for the way she was completely humiliated in that reboot story. She picks up a skull and wants to know where the leader of the robot pirates is hiding. If she means Captain Whisker, why doesn't she just say that? The robot skull says that Whisker and Johnny are gone. I assume we'll be told why later on. Later on, Marine tells Blaze they can have a vacation after hunting pirates forever. How is she able to run the kingdom and hunt pirates non-stop? She doesn't even seem to want to break from it and says they should remain vigilant. So did she ever take any breaks to do any administrative duties? She has to have a substitute ruler. If she had a father we never see, that'd require guts to show us. It's just hard to take it seriously that she has all this free time if she's the only Soul Dimension royalty we ever see, despite being called a mere princess. She even says she has a lot of responsibilities because she's the princess. Of an outright empire, apparently. Finally, some development on her world. Apparently her kingdom insists on constantly conquering to expand its land. But that doesn't make any sense because I thought she was a hero. So why won't she put an end to the conquering if she's running the kingdom? Maybe she isn't. And who knows what duties she's talking about then. Or maybe don't use the word empire then. Then she approaches Knuckles, looking unintentionally menacing. She says the Soul Emeralds let her go to his world and he saw a pillar of flame because of it. She tells Knuckles she wants to talk to him guardian to guardian. It's about time. She wonders if it's ever acceptable to step away, not honor one's duties. Why would she ever decide to take a vacation if she went to Knuckles for advice about it? Of course he would disapprove of that, because when he did it, Metal Sonic got the Master Emerald. She explains that her ministers do most of the administration, and all she does is review their paperwork. Okay, it's a constitutional monarchy. That doesn't explain why she lets her kingdom be an empire because of her ministers. We all know the British Empire wasn't perfect. All she cares about is that her kingdom's peaceful. She thinks her entire world is at peace because robot pirates are gone for now. And the Soul Emeralds are kept in a secure case under constant watch if they aren't with her, and she tells him she could always hide the case in a more secure and guarded place. Knuckles says all that, making it clear that he thinks she's better off than him, and says she should take a vacation. He says the Master Emerald can't leave the island, even though it has plenty of times, without the entire island being destroyed, or the world blowing up. He had in the arc in SA2. Why this dedication to keeping Angel Island floating, when all that does is tell everybody that the Master Emerald is there to steal? It's not like there's any ancient advanced technology there that should also be kept away from people. Other than that, it's just an island with ruins on it. He'd be much better off hiding it where no one would look for it. Like the Ark, actually. So he'd have to be a complete moron to think he can't hide it anywhere that's more secure. It'd actually be better writing if his excuse was that he's following Guardian tradition, but this isn't Archie, so he's the only Guardian there's been. If his excuse was to call one to prove, she'd be the idiot. But even that'd be more believable. Remember when the Master Emerald was in Tails' spaceship in the 3rd season of Sonic X? Blaze thanks him for the insights, and when she offers to monitor his island sometimes to give him time off, he refuses. But at least he's smiling. I wish that would happen because that'd be interesting. So we see Coral Cave's Shrine of the Jeweled Scepter. I wonder if it'll get stolen, despite the constant patrol ships, making your decision retroactively stupid. Marine has access to the chamber, so someone could follow her, especially if they're invisible or really tiny. It's a world with sentient robots in it. It's a surprise that Marine gets sad that Blaze is gonna leave and hugs her. She pats her head in return, and then Marine does a ton of talking confidently to change the mood of the scene. I hope she actually is fearless now. She says she'll call her home if there's trouble. So Blaze goes to Floral Forest Village, according to the text box. Maybe I'd actually feel like IDW had its own world separate from the games and care more about it if the comic revisited its locations a lot and developed on them. Instead, it feels bland because its only exclusive locations seem to be boring villages, or a few stereotypical bases of Eggman. And if they do get revisited, they're never unique and memorable, aside from the walled town. So I'd have no reason to remember that it was a specific place we saw and its name. While Echidnapolis and Mobotropolis had history, the only thing special about this village seems to be that Amy lives in it. Amy tells Sonic about her last adventure while he looks jealous, and Cream wishes she could camp with her. When Blaze greets them, Cream and her hug. She really prefers Cream because she hugs her back. Cream states the obvious, and Sonic wants to celebrate her taking a vacation. And Blaze thanks her, saying it's good to be back with her friends. In the next story, we see what happened right after Tails gave Omega a new body. He thanks him, and he tells him to spar with poor General for a test drive. Even Omega is more considerate than Tails, because he says he can't guarantee his welfare after that. Well, I guess Tails assumed it wouldn't matter if he got hurt, because a robot can be fixed from anything. So we see General fly around and fire missiles at Omega with trees around them. Why on earth would heroes do all this fighting around trees when they could destroy the trees by accident? Omega wouldn't care, but General should because he's Cream and Vanilla's friend. Why should I care about this pointless story? I know they'll be fine, it's just fighting between two friends. One of them should have had someone take control of them. At least the fighting doesn't last very long with nothing interesting happening before Omega advised them to join him. But he should have known General wouldn't abandon Cream's family if he was happy to stay with them as long as he did instead of simply joining Gun. Like I would have assumed he'd have done after Advance 3. General wastes my time stating the obvious. They go back to fighting, thankfully we don't see it, and they return to compassionate Tails and Bell to get fixed again. How are either of them surprised that they need fixing again? Tails should have known letting them fight was a dumb idea. See what I mean about him not being smart enough? At least it's sweet that they got some newfound respect for each other. It's weird to see robots bro-fist. Vanilla asks Cream what she's most excited to learn at, oh, not school, but at Hero Camp. Now I wish it was explained that she's homeschooled because I never see her at school. Why should I care about her going to camp? When she's not flying, she's just a normal, boring kid. One of the kids mentions tying knots. I hope she'll tie knots someday to be useful. But even then, that won't justify a generic camp story because we don't have to see where she went to learn that. Out of nowhere, Orbot tells Cubot in the camp building that the camp keeper is genius because he thinks the kids going to this hero camp would have information on the restoration. The idea that their disguises would actually make Cream think that they're not Orbot and Cubot is absolutely laughable and ridiculous. Not even a fanfiction would have Cream be that gullible. They don't know they're robots. I assume most of the kids think they're robots built to be camp counselors. But Cream would only still be happy here if she was giving them the benefit of the doubt and assuming that because they're here instead of with Eggman, they quit their jobs to be good guys and that's why they're here. I can't really blame her for thinking that. It's wishful thinking, but they do have free will if they keep disrespecting Eggman. I guess I could forgive someone assuming that their resemblance to Orbot and Cubot is a coincidence or they were based on them. But Cream would recognize their voices. All of the kids get their hands tied behind their backs by Orbot, or Cubot, and Cream easily breaks free of the rope. But the writer sucks by not explaining how. She says Sonic's spines cut through rope, but that doesn't explain how she magicked her way out of the knots. Even Mike Gallagher having Sonic turn intangible makes more sense, because at least it had his super speed and magic as an excuse. And obviously everyone would hear Cubot say that rope isn't a weakness for Sonic, and figure things out. But maybe everyone knows the truth by now and are just humoring them because they know it's either this, or they'll have to go home. After all, there's really no point to confronting them on the truth. Either way, the real camp counselors aren't showing up. Finally, Cream looks annoyed when Orbot tells the kids to imagine that they're recreating the Restoration hideout. Him saying that implies that he somehow didn't literally tell them to recreate their hideout. Why would he leave this to chance? I guess I can say that it's good that the kids are being taught how to build this stuff. Cream tells them that the hideout had a mall, play area, and chili dog stand. I'd never imagined any Freedom Fighter HQ to have all of those things, especially not an outright mall. There is no harm in telling them this. Still, I hope the writer isn't actually expecting me to believe she didn't instantly see through their disguises, because that's giving me flashbacks to the issue of Sonic the Comic Online introducing her, where nobody alive could be as stupid as she was, and her being gullible was supposed to be passed off as making sense because she's a kid. That's insulting to kids. No one would see pirates and join them and think they'd get to be with Sonic. This is approaching that level. Maybe a Big the Cat if you want that kind of stupidity. Or better yet, don't have Cream in the story at all. So far the only benefit is that she looked cool breaking free of ropes. But that didn't even make sense either. It'd make just as much sense for some random kid to break free of the ropes. She doesn't have intangibility either. The robots want the kids to tell them scary stories that scare even a hero, like stories about new robots. A kid wants s'mores instead, bravely saying that they should just do that instead. Cream says there are no camp leaders, and it's shocking to see her so mad as she yells to get them and the kids go after them. The story ends with her not telling Vanilla the truth right away and just saying that they're already heroes, as Cubot and Orbot are tied to each other. But that doesn't mean the real camp leaders came back. So this doesn't accomplish much besides upsetting some nice but stupid robots, and leaving the kids unsupervised. And it doesn't make sense that Orbot says that he taught them too well. He never taught anyone how to tie knots and rope. In the next story, I like seeing Amy and her friends harvesting food near Restoration HQ. It's smart of them to have a way to get food near it. So they're more competent than I thought, because they know how to grow tomatoes and carrots. Sonic helps by holding a basket and bringing it somewhere else. Amy tells Silver that she's so glad he came here to help and thanks him. Did she just notice him here? He says that's why he's here, but he makes it obvious that it's not really why he's here. So Tangle distracting Amy is the only excuse for why she doesn't confront him on why he talks like that. He takes off and gets confronted by Espio, and wastes time lying that he's not troubled, before Espio says that he'd like to know about any danger he's concealing. Silver says he doesn't know why he's here. Neither do I, because last time I saw him he went back to the future. He says that every other time he was sent to the past, it was to save the future, implying that he was sent into the past by someone or something else. He thankfully confirms that there's no crisis in his future and things are okay here. And somehow he wonders if some disaster is gonna hit tomorrow, even though he went to the future and confirmed that this won't happen. I like that Espio tells him to take a deep breath and calm down. It's really making use of him being the serious one in a way that's respectful of him, instead of him being the butt of a joke, like Sonic X, when usually it's either that or really boring. He rambles a lot boringly before saying to have faith. I really didn't need to see that many panels of him reiterating the same thing for his points in different ways. He tells him to enjoy himself and gets hugged and thanked. Too bad he doesn't hug back. But then I see a story where someone puts food in the microwave, and it turns out to be Jet, who has a late birthday card from his dad. Whoa. Why does he get a reference to his parents and nobody else from the games? What Sega mandates? Maybe they got away with this because one of the games had a picture on the wall of his dad, or reference that he used to be in charge before him? I don't know his games that well, so I don't know. But still, I assumed his dad wasn't alive, and that's probably what the games wanted me to think. This tries to set IDW apart as his own world by having his dad still be alive, and just too busy for him. Awesome. It's humanizing him. Then a Wisp steals his calzone for Whisper, who's trying to kill a robot again. Jet talks a lot, clearly lying because he couldn't have found gems while he was chasing his lunch. And you'd think that with all this talking, the giant robot would have grabbed him sooner. Also, why on earth did the robot grab him first instead of Whisper, an actual freedom fighter? Jet's dialogue is obnoxious because he's constantly projecting unearned overconfidence. He's like Reggie without the Casanova or prankster flaws. So he's less three-dimensional than Reggie. Whisper ends up using Jet's extreme gear and shooting a laser at the robot. And a giant net suddenly materializes above the thing for no reason. I like that he not only admits that he's impressed with her, but says she'll make a great Babylon rogue and wants to know if her afternoons are free. He should know a freedom fighter wouldn't steal gems with him, and it's not like he knows that she tried to shoot Eggman to death. I guess it's just her black clothes. In the next story, in Spiral Hill Village, I have to see Rough and Tumble again, so that sucks. And they're talking about the rhyming they do that makes them suck worse than most of the characters in the series. A good writer would see a flaw and drop it if he can. They do too much arguing. And then at the Mineral Museum, there's the shocking revelation that the museum advertises a Chaos Emerald in it. What in the world is the owner thinking? It's so obvious that's just begging for Eggman to damage the place and steal it. You'd think that since they have such powerful energy, they'd be given to the heroes, or hidden. And it's ridiculous that these two even made it to the glass case around the emeralds without setting up a security system, like invisible infrared lasers. Tangle says confusing dialogue, and Rouge also talks like she was working for one of them, and Tangle encourages the two of them to fight. Then Tangle says she's babysitting and finds out that she's undercover too. We see a flashback explaining that Tangle was begged to work for Ruff because he doesn't know what to do without someone to order around. I know he was desperate, but it was still an idiot bull for him to think a freedom fighter would ever be loyal to him. She says she tried to play it off as vigilante hero work to his credit, but of course she wouldn't trust him. Obviously Rough and Tumble would hear these two talking. I guess they don't care because they're busy fighting. How do they stay together then? Ruff tells his brother why he teamed up with Tangle, and he realizes they both had the same plan. And they hug, and Tumble apologizes. And the anime-fixated artist has them cry gushers of tears for some reason, even though the series is only popular in the West. Finally, Tangle ties them up with her tail. She finds out the emerald was stolen by Rouge after all. It is clearly better for it to be with one of the heroes than in the museum that advertises it being there, so she should be thanking her for keeping it safe. Eggman would take a lot longer to think to go after Rouge for the emerald. Meanwhile, he could use Google and find out where this emerald is in a heartbeat. But that's if he thinks to Google where it is. He wouldn't do that because he wouldn't be able to find out where an emerald is with Google most of the time. That'd be too easy. You'd think the government would be protecting it. If nobody tells him there's a museum with an emerald in it and he doesn't pay attention to the news to find out, he'd never find it because he'd never even suspect that someone would be so bold as to have an emerald there. And if it's with Rouge, he'd find it eventually if it's in her house because she's associated with Sonic. Unlike Ruff. So he would make a habit of searching his friends' houses for emeralds. I can't believe Tangle is dumb enough to think that the emerald should stay here. Might as well have a giant neon sign pointing to it saying, "Eggman, here's the emerald." I'm proud of Rouge for having common sense. And I'm glad the writer did remember that she's a jewel thief, and thus it wouldn't be completely outlandish for her to want to do this. This pointless issue had a lot of different stories in it. In the first one, Blaze and Knuckles finally have a talk guardian to guardian, discussing what makes their situations different. Blaze decides to take a vacation because Knuckles tells her she can get away with it while he can't, and because she takes a robot skull's word for it that Whisker is missing and is too tired of fighting pirates to try to find him. Who knows why he's missing? I doubt the writer would have the guts or be allowed to have it be because Blaze killed him unknowingly, but that'd make more sense than him being missing for no reason. The second story has Tails grab the idiot ball and tell Omega he can spar with Gemma when he just fixed him. Belle isn't so smart either because she doesn't warn him. And somehow they're surprised that he desperately needs fixing again. The fight's completely uninteresting, so luckily there's barely any focus on the attacks. But Omega should have known Gemma wouldn't abandon his position in life. At least I finally saw real interaction between the two. Then Cream goes to Hero Camp, and somehow it's never confirmed that she saw through Orbot and Cubot's paper-thin disguises in an instant. But thankfully it's never confirmed that she and the kids were fooled by them either. Realistically, they just humored them, in the hopes that they quit Eggman for better jobs. I suppose it was interesting seeing what Orbot was telling them to do. So I guess it was actually a good story in spite of the AOSDH-style disguise problem. Cream somehow escapes the ropes tying her hands together with no explanation. It's only supposed to make sense because she's friends with Sonic. And she tells the kids to tie them up. How pointless. When I first saw Orbot and Cubot there, I got reminded that we never found out what they did on their vacation, and this could have shown what their vacation was like, instead of it being a half-baked plan of Eggman's to get info on the restoration and Sonic's weaknesses. He would have downloaded them into robot bodies looking like Mobians if he really wanted them to be convincing. Then there's a story that disappointed me by somehow not directly explaining why Silver came back to the past. Silver talks as if he's always sent back to the past, implying that he doesn't choose to go back, someone does it for him. I assumed he came back to the past because he wanted to keep being a hero even if he wasn't outright mandatory anymore, because it would be fun and it would make him feel better. This comic's too lazy to even establish who sent him back in time. The whole point of the story was supposed to be that it explained why Silver's back in the past, but somehow even he doesn't know, when it's obvious he's there to be a hero and that it's seen as worth it because he'll help even a little, even if he's not necessary for a good future anymore. This is kind of symbolic of why IDW is subjectively more bland than Archie, because in Archie it has more to it because it tells us why Silver was sent back in time, and here, there's nothing. It's emptiness. Well, it was nice to see Espio comfort him and get hugged for once. Obviously, it'd be better to see who sends him back in time, instead of the writing becoming convoluted and muddled because he doesn't know why he's here. Why wouldn't someone who's sending him back in time talk to him first, instead of hiding from him? Even Mammoth Mogul told him why he was sending him back in time. I like the very beginning of the Jet story, because it humanizes him with mere images, showing a late birthday card from his father. But instead of being about his father or how he feels about him, it stops being interesting because it's another story where a Sonic character deals with a robot. This isn't even the first time he was grabbed by a giant robot. That happened in his first appearance in Archie. Whisper saves him in an uncreative way, and I like that he got impressed, but he should have known he couldn't recruit her. And then there's a story with Rough and Tumble where unfortunately I'm expected to believe that a museum would advertise having a Chaos Emerald. Not to mention, it'd have a security system that they'd set off. Or if it didn't, they'd assume it'd have one and not bother trying to steal it. At least the Sonic X comic acknowledged that jewel museums have cameras and infrared lasers. There's no reason Tangle and Rouge would have to take it upon themselves to protect the emeralds from these two. And I don't think they really thought it through. I wish one of them said that they assume that Rough and Tumble will sell a Chaos Emerald to Eggman. And so, that's why they can't afford to let them take the emeralds. Because, if that's not the case, then Eggman would never guess that they have an emerald, and Knuckles, with his emerald radar in him, could easily find the emerald if Sonic needs it. So it might be safer with them, actually. These two are annoying. So I kinda understand not wanting them to have an emerald out of spite, but I think that was as far as these two thought about it.